So with a hand and wrist orthosis as this one, we can further develop other kind of orthosis. So using this as a base, we can, for instance, wear it in. And when we check with the patient, we can notice, for instance, that the patient is unable to put the thumb in opposition. So ideally, we want to make this orthosis so that the patient can use the hand in a functional way, for instance, to grasp and release objects. But for this to be achieved, we need the patient to have enough thumb opposition. Okay. If the patient is enabled, can go to something like this. So something like this, or not even able to do this movement. So we may want to create a bit more support here for the thumb and to put the thumb in front of the other fingers. In order to do so, we need to add another piece to the orthosis, and we're gonna cut like a simple rectangle. Make sure always to make all the pieces as round as possible. This is a general rule. So by using a rectangle like this, we're gonna warm it and try to model it around so that the thumb is more stabilized in opposition to the other fingers. Wait 1 minute. At this point, once the thermoplastic orthosis is already made, we don't need anymore to put the patient lying on the bed in order to stabilize the hand midway between pronation and supination. At this point, we already have the orthosis. We have just to model at the level of the thumb. So it's more important that we focus on stabilizing the thumb in the proper position, and that we, well, create a support, but we still give enough movement that the patient can go in a position at least with the first 2 fingers. So now we're going to press a bit more to make sure that we have a good thumb opposition. I'm pushing just where the orthosis already supported by the wrist orthosis. So I make sure that I'm not pushing directly on the thumb. Okay. Then having more time, I try to make it round also at this level. It's important that we check the level of stability that we provided at this in between the fingers. Is not so important on the outer line. The outer line can be just something like this, and we can still give enough space that the patient can take the thumb out of the orthosis. Now it's getting thicker. We can take it out. Yes. And at this point we're gonna hit in the edges of this additional portion, so that it can be more attached to the original orthosis. We're gonna use a pistol gun to do so. We're gonna go just on the outer layer. As soon as it gets sticky, you attach it to the rest of the orthosis. Something that goes very quick, so take attention not to wait too much. Also not to damage the original orthosis. I'm using about 300.5 degrees Celsius to heat, so it goes very quickly. Okay. So it's best to wait a little bit that the orthosis become thick again, hard again, and then we can wear it in a second time and to check everything. But anyway, this is the final appearance of a hand-wrist orthosis with the thumb stabilization in opposition. I recommend to use this if the patient is unable to stabilize the thumb in opposition with the other finger. I do not recommend to do so if the patient has just a deficit in the stabilization of the wrist, but is able to stabilize the thumb in opposition with the other fingers, because this will be created too much support to the thumb, which is not required. So the philosophy in general is that less is more. So you have to provide the least amount possible of support, then the patient can actively move in the hand in a functional way. Whatever is exceeding that, you should remove or minimize as much as possible. Takes now a moment to become hard again. For instance, now I used the orthosis while I was manipulating the material and cutting with the scissors, and I had a limitation because of wearing the orthosis. I couldn't move the wrist in all the direction. I had to move more my elbow. I perceived that limitation, so we have to make sure that this limitation is compensated by a functional gain by the patient that, for instance, is able to stabilize more and use more the hand in a functional way. We are always to consider the cost and benefit of each intervention. Okay, now it's becoming hard again. Need to wait now a moment, still a moment here. Meanwhile, we can wear it in. So I recommend to put the fingers in a position already during the manipulation of during the fabrication of the orthosis. If you notice that this edge is too high, as in my case, I notice, yes, that I can go in a position this way, but it's, well, a little bit too high. I would like to be half a centimeter lower. You can as well adapt it, and you can either use the pistol gun, but if we have an edge like this, I might prefer to put just this edge in the water for a few seconds and then try to model down. Yeah. So I go down this way. I wait a few seconds. I can wait more seconds than with the pistol gun because we are talking about 70-80 degree here and not 350. And then I just make it round, so. Okay. Now I feel that I have a proper opposition. My thumb cannot fall in the plane of the hand, is in front of the other fingers, but I still have enough freedom to properly move and flex the distal edge of the thumb this way. Okay, so let's say that we have a patient that, for instance, we work a lot with a patient with neurological diseases. So, for instance, a patient with stroke. This patient initially had instability of the wrist and of the fingers, so was unable to stabilize, neither move the fingers and the wrist in a functional way. And we started with this kind of orthosis that stabilized both the wrist, the finger, and the shape of the hand in a proper way. After a while, after a few weeks, he recovered, so some activity at the level of the thumb, so that we don't need anymore this support. Okay, we still need the wrist and orthosis, but we don't need anymore this extra support that we gave. In this case, we can just take it out. So this this attachment is enough strong to support the forces that the thumb is applying, but if we pull enough strong, for instance by means of a pair of scissors, okay, so in this case we had back our hand wrist orthosis, and the piece that we added, we can take it out this way. Of course, the bigger you make, the more difficult it is to take it out. So in this case, I wanted to give more support and took more time to take it out. I could still separate the two pieces because I didn't remove the coated material over the orthosis. If you scratch with a scissor, if you scratch out the coated material and then on both sides and then you attach them together, it will not be impossible to detach them anymore. If you leave the coated material on, then you can arrange this way and get back on your original orthosis.